Welcome to today's webinar. We're doing What's New in Autodesk Revit 2019. Today we have with us our application specialists, Curt Egli, our Senior Revit Application Specialist, and David Campbell, one of our other Revit Application Specialists here at PPI Group, a Topcon Solutions store. With that, I'm going to go ahead and hand you guys over to Curt to get this thing rolling.
Good morning, everybody. Pleased that you could join us today. As we're going through this, we'll try and monitor the chat window, or maybe Paul can do that, monitoring the chat window to, if you have any questions. Some of them we might be able to handle just as we go on the fly here. Others, we might hold them till the end. And we may go over an hour. We'll see. There's several things that we wanted to show you today. Autodesk, when they were working on Revit 2019, they concentrated on 6 key areas that they wanted to improve on, and there's the 6 in buckets. And we're not going to do them particularly in that order, but for the modernization, you can see that the bullet items there are around updating the user interface. In terms of strengthening, they went for trying to make a solid foundation for efficiency, and that's what you're seeing there for that. In terms of create, they're concentrating on creating efficient ways to capture information in design intent. And then, of course, automate. That's attention given to automating tasks. And the inform part, that's around, you'll see it's more around piping and pump, but they're trying to optimize designs there for mechanical engineers and the like that do that. And then in terms of connect, they've worked on strengthening the connection of workflows for team-based projects. So quite a few of these you'll see are across all disciplines. Some of them are just for structural engineers, some of them are just for mechanical engineers, but especially in the modernization and strengthen part of it, you'll see that that is particularly on all disciplines like architecture and the like. So thought I'd do a few things for you here. We're just going to jump back and forth. We'll do a little bit of PowerPoint and then we'll bounce over and show you something in the product back and forth. Some of them only take a moment to show. Tabbed views now in Revit 2019. The idea is to organize and arrange your views more readily. You can close inactive views, so if you have several tabs open with different views, the ones that are behind can get closed. So I'll show you a little bit of that one. So let me bounce over here to Revit. And so here's Revit 2019. It's right up in this area right here that is that subtle new area where we have tabs on this, so that if I open up another view, for example, I'm going to open up a level 1 HVAC here. You see how it adds in an extra tab? So I can go back and forth between these. If I open up another one, there's level 2 for the HVAC. Now I've got 3 of them across the way. I can reorder these too, you know, so you can see I'm just pulling these back and forth to reorder them if that would make it a little easier for me to access it. Additionally, I can take a tab and drag it off and dock it horizontally, like in this case. Here I have it down at the bottom, and I can take another tab and add it into the same dock, so that you know, like if I do a ZA here, for example, zoom that back, instead of having just vertical ones like that and tiling 3 different views, you know, I can in this case have them horizontal like that. All right, now for example, here's level 1 HVAC here, that's at the back, and the 3D view is open, and the level 2 is open. On the view tab, they've added in this, which is to close inactive. So there's 2 new buttons out here, close inactive. You see how it closed down the 1 tab and still left these open. So you don't have to close down everything but one, which can be very helpful there too. If you want you can use this tab views here. It's also TW. TW will combine them back together again so that the windows will get tabbed back into a single tab there. Okay. Multi-monitor support. Now, we've kind of had multi-monitor support in the past to where you could tear off the property palette and the project browser and place it on another monitor. Most people work with 2, even 3. I saw one guy with 4 monitors. Eat your hearts out. The thing is, you hadn't been, if you wanted to work with a view, you know, a schedule, a section view, a plan, those had to all be within Canvas, right? They had to be in the confines of Revit. Now we can drag it off. Now I'm only working here with one monitor, obviously, but I can show you what I'm talking about here with dragging the 3D view off and placing it someplace else, such as another monitor. So I can be working with a plan here, a section over there, a 3D view over here, and it'll float out next to the application, maybe on another monitor in this case. You know, and just bringing it back like that will dock it back in place. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at the next one. In 3D views, you've never been able to have levels before. So if you ever went to visibility graphics overrides, you'll just plain not see that there. They've added that in now in 2019. And so you can better tell what level these are on. Let me just give you a shot at what this is like, okay? So here's a multi-story building that I'm working with here. And I want to know what's on what level and take control over it. Right, so I'm just going to go to visibility graphics and toggle on levels, and the donut spins, and you can see here the levels come up here. Okay, so now I can see roof level, level 5, and of course, you know, I can orbit around that. I'll show you a little later on with scope boxes on a separate feature how we can better control that like you would with a scope box in 2D. As well. So if I select on one of the levels, you can see that it highlights in kind of this pinkish color. So I can tell right where that level is as I'm working. And you can reposition these too, you know, like there's a drag point over here on the end. I can drag it back and release it and stagger them, get them in closer if I wanted to as well on this. The views, if I you know, like here's level 5, for example. Just like you would in a section or elevation view, if I wanted to rename this one 5th floor, I can do that right here as well. It'll change it. If, you know, say the basement, I want to drop that down to -5 feet. I click on that and say -5, and the basement will drop down to -5 feet. So I have that same kind of control that I would have in a section or an elevation view now here in 3D as well. Okay, back to modernization. They have a number of new materials that are physically based appearance assets that they've added in. For the older assets, you can edit those to make them more physically based, like the new ones that they're adding in. And you can see the difference here between the two. Sometimes it's kind of subtle, you know, but like this tabletop here versus this one over here. Same thing with the kind of richness of the wood grains and such like that. Traditional being before they added this in. It's more realistic visual effects. And of course, we're using the ray trace engine that they went to solely in 2017, I believe it was. Okay, perspective views. We now have uncropped perspective views, and you can toggle back and forth between orthographic and perspective. So you can work with more easily there. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Let's go back over to Revit, and I'm going to go to a plan view, and I'll make a camera view here. So make a camera. Maybe I'll look from here over to, let's look over to here, for example. All right, first it comes up looking very much just like what you're used to with earlier versions. That you have the ability to change the crop around the outside edge if you wanted to. Here, I'll go to shaded just for fun here once on this. If I come over here to the property palette and I say, don't crop the view, and I do like this, the donut spins a little bit, and that border goes away. So I can do the orbiting and such like that, like I normally would do in Revit, and the other one I had mentioned was projection mode. Right now we're in perspective, but I can go to orthographic if I want, and it looks like this, and I could orbit off of that, and or come back again to perspective, and it remembers where I was for that. And perspective, there you go. Okay, anyway, that's another modernization that they've done. Scope box improvements. One of them is that the alphanumeric sorting now on the scope box list, so it's easier for you to find it in the property palette there. And scope boxes in 3D have been improved here, so that if you modify the shape, there's a section box that will come down and adhere to where the scope box is if the size of the scope box changes. And of course, datum elements that are assigned to it will change accordingly as well. So and let me show you a little bit of that in action as well. So let's come back over. Let me use the 3D view for this. I have a couple of scope boxes already in here. This one right here is the east section of building, I called it, and then there was another one that was in here as well. Now, the section box right now, I'll go ahead and toggle that on so you can see that it's actually like way out there encompassing I think there's a parking garage or something out there that it's set to, so way out in this area right here. But if I were to assign a scope box to this view, so right now I'm assigned with scope box none. I'm over here in the property palette. If I say east section of building, which we know where that one is, just down in that one area, you can see that the section box and the scope box now are adhering to this area down here at the same time. So for example, well, here, let me point this out before I do this next step. You can see here that we're up to roof level, 5th floor, 4th floor, and the like on this with our annotative objects, with the datum elements here. If I say that that I want to change the size of the scope box, so I'm just going to toggle off the section box here so that I change the size of the one I'm after. So here I am, I'm pulling it down and I release it. So now the scope box is down here at this level. And when I turn around and assign that once again to the scope box to this, say east section of building, you can see that it adheres to that in 3D, but it also the datum elements like these levels now, the 5th floor and the roof and such like that, are no longer displayed. It displays only the levels associated with the scope box extents and adjust to the scope box boundary for that. Okay. All right, let's do another one here. All right, in terms of strengthening it, one of the things they did for us in this one is they have added in OR filters. Now, you've worked with AND filters before, but you know some of the frustration with trying to get the rules to be exactly what you're after for the desired results. Here we have OR rules plus the ability to nest a rule as well. This way you can define some really complex and sophisticated rules for this in the filters. So let me give you an example of one way that I might use this. Now, for those of you that are not mechanical in nature, you can see here that there's some pink duct out here, some blue duct, and some green duct. Now, the pink duct, if you look over here, is a system type of return air. Okay, the blue duct is the system type of supply air. And the green duct is the system type of exhaust air. Now, what if I wanted to say I only want exhaust air in this view? Now, this could be in plan too. I just thought it'd be more fun to do it in 3D. But I want a rule that looks at the system type and says if it's supply or return air or return, let me emphasize the emphasis on or, then I might want to see it or might not want to see it. So you do this in visibility graphics. You go to filters tab and you say edit new. If you haven't done this before, it's broken into 3 parts with the filter name here, the categories that are affected in the middle, and the rules over here. You're seeing now in 2019 that this rules area looks considerably different. So I'm going to make a new one here called supply or return, right? Air, might as well say air on that. That's just a name. All right, so there's a new one in here. So here's supplier return air. I want it to affect air terminals, and I don't need to do it all, but I'll have duct fittings and duct. And I better put in flexible duct too, because there's probably some of those out there, flexible duct. So it's going to affect those categories, whatever I decide to do with it, coloring it, turning it on and off, that kind of thing. Now here's the and right now, but I'm going to say instead I'd like to have an or rule in here. So there, as you're creating these, we talked about nesting. You can add a rule like this and or take it away, or if you add a set, then it becomes a nest. So if it meets this criteria, then go to the next one up, right? And these little red symbols off to the side will remove them. So I'm gonna say as an or rule, if the system type, and I'm gonna get lazy here and just do equals, then I don't have to type anything in, and then add another rule where it's still or the system type, equals, let's see, I did system, okay, return air. So system type, return air, whoops, supply air, gotta have supply air and return air, right? And I say okay to that. And then I add that in, now I called it supply or return air. If it meets either of those criteria, I don't want to see it. Okay, not visible. Now, when I hit OK, the pink ones and the blue ones should disappear if you're mechanically challenged here. Okay, I'll say OK to that, and those disappear, right? Leaving only the green ones, all right, which is the exhaust air. Sweet, huh? You're gonna like that. That works in all sorts of disciplines. You know, architecturally it might be if the fire rating is this or that, you know, so on and so forth. There are ways to use that. Okay, double fill patterns. We've only been able to use single fill patterns before, whether they were linear in nature or whether they were patterns like you're seeing here with concrete, for example. Now you can lay them over the top of each other with a foreground and a background on this. So maybe I'll just do this real quickly for you as well. We're doing okay on time. Yeah, I think we're doing fine. So with that, let me go over to a plan view, and I'll just throw this out here in the middle of the, you know, put a fill pattern out here that does that. So you start it just like you normally would do. You say, I'd like to make a filled region, and then you go, you know, I want it just like right here, but you know, I'm not going to take the time to duplicate all that stuff like you probably ought to, but I'll just take this one that exists right now with a crosshatch on it. But here's the background fill pattern that's new, and of course you can add colors to these too, and say I want concrete for that, you know, both in projection and in plan, in cut. So in projection or cut, you can be doing this. So concrete, diagonal crosshatch, okay. and finish, and ta-da, it's just like that, easy to make these. It just looks at the regular patterns that you have, whatever you have in your library, and you can lay them over the top of each other. Easy enough. With text, we've always had the horizontal adjustments, but when you go over here to the start your text command now, you'll see that there's some new controls in here for alignment vertically. Some of you probably seen the strengthening that they've done with regard to renaming. It showed up in 2018.1, I think, somewhere in there, or .2, where if you click in the project browser, it will, just like with, they're trying to replicate what Microsoft is doing in the Windows File Explorer, where if you do a slow click, you rename it. If you do a fast double click, it will, instead of a slow double click, it will launch it. So they're doing that. Also, they've added in the ability to suppress this message. So if you don't want to be renaming, you can say, just don't show me that again, and just don't rename them, or vice versa on that. The other thing they've added in too, when you're deleting levels, it brings up a warning of what all is going to get deleted with you doing that, things that are relying on that. And then you probably would go to the expand button here to see the full list, to see what kind of disaster you're making if you're deleting levels that have a lot of objects on them. It's to protect you from yourself, right? You're seeing that now. So file version displays on open. It's kind of subtle. Yeah, I'll just show you here quickly. If I go to File, Open, Project, and I pick on, say, this one right here, it'll say Revit 2019. I click on this one here, Revit 2018. So I can see before I even hit the Open button what version it's going to be. What was it? A couple releases ago, they added in the ability to stop the upgrade from happening. But it takes a while till that part of the dialog shows up, especially depending on the size of the file, and then it takes a little while for it to back out. So this can help you. You'll see that both with project files and with family files as well. Okay, I have a couple more here yet. This is for around pumps, the next two that I wanted to show you. They've added, you saw that they added in some things in pumps in Revit 2018 earlier. In the family editor, you could turn on mechanical equipment and say, this is a pump. And then from there, you can see they've been concentrating on that. Now we have a chance to manage pump sets in this one and put some in standby if we want to. So say you have 4 pumps. You want to put 1 or 2 of them in standby. It'll take the update of the fraction of the flow and the associated pressure drop through the pump branches for this. So let me show you that here. I'm going to go to, let's go up to the roof here where I have some pumps up there already. Let's go down to this one. Oops, did a double click. Did it again. Not double clicking fast enough today. Okay, so need more coffee. Okay. Anyway, I got a few pumps out here. I'm gonna take these pumps and then create a piping system around them. And yeah, supply is fine. And that connection and the next one, that connection, you can see that it's pointing to which one it's asking. So it's making a piping system like that. I'm in the dialog to add and remove equipment and such like that. But here's the new part right here in the middle. I can add a set, okay, and add a set to that and say these are part of the set. And for that matter, 2 of them are on duty and 1 of them is in standby. Okay, and then you say okay to that, and ta-da, here's your pump set here. You can also control this from out here. I can say, I want all 3 of them on duty and none on standby. Right now, we don't have any calculated flow or pressure drop on this. I'm not going to take the time to do that when we have multiple disciplines on the webcast with us, but that you'd see the calculation change on that as well. Okay, so all right, one more for you before I hand this over to David then to do some. This is complex piping networks. There's a separation element now, so that once we separate two connected pipes, the calculated flow and pressure loss calculations for the secondary loop will display on the pump for that loop. So let me show you how that looks here. Let me go over to level 3 here, where I have some pipes. I have them set up with the ones in red are hydronic supply. You can see that. And over here on this kind of orangish color is hydronic return here. You know, so say that that I say create similar off of this, and I'm drawing some pipe here. Come off perpendicular. I'm drawing. When you change, for those of you that don't work with pipe or MEP land, I guess just in general, if I were to take this red one, which is hydronic supply, and say that it's actually hydronic return, it's a cascading event, which is a good thing, you know, because then you don't have to go around from fitting to fitting and fitting and say you're actually part of a different system here. But what if I need a separation between this one and that one? So you'll see the symbol show up when I add the separator. It's a new button up here on the ribbon. If I say add separation there, and you can turn that symbol off if you don't want it. It's a new subcategory under visibility graphics overrides for pipe. And now if I say that this pipe right here is hydronic return, you'll see that it only cascades on that side of it to make it orange, okay, if you want, right? This over here is still hydronic supply. And so with that, I'm going to switch presenters, and we're going to move over to David now. He's going to handle ones you had seen under the create and connect, I guess was the categories that we had there.
Yes, sir. All right.
All right, he's sharing his screen.
All right. So let me get that out of here. Where's that?
Yeah, this orange
That
button
one
at the top.
Okay,
will collapse
cool.
it.
There we go. All right. So my name's David Campbell. First off, I'll start with create. And one of the first ones I'm going to show you guys is going to be that we can now actually dimension for curved objects in section views, and then being able to dimension in our section views for more accurate documentation on complex forms, and then I guess end-to-end workflow for bridges. But what we'll see if I jump in this section here, so I put some number 4 rebar in one of my footings here, and you can see that I can go ahead, annotate, aligned, get rid of that there. But I can go ahead and dimension and grab my rebar right here in my section. Now I can also, which is really nice, maybe grab some from my my actual columns, get a column distance showing in my sections, things like that. I can also, so let me get in my first floor here. So you guys can see that this section is actually cutting through this radius wall that I have right here. In this section view, I can actually grab it. So you'll see where that wall kind of splits right there. It's nice because I can actually grab the point right where that wall splits and get an idea of where it's going as far as, so let me see if I can find it here. So it's going to start, let me see if I can grab it. There we go, right in there. So it's going to start right in here, and then I can take it over and figure out exactly where that point is, where my wall is going to go ahead and kind of end where that curve is. So it'll grab those points for me. Okay. Now, that's a pretty nice feature. The next one I'll show you guys is going to be split railings. So finally, they gave us the ability to go ahead and split these railings, which allows us to simplify the creation modification. Now, this is also going to be fully supported on multi-story stairs. So what I can go ahead and do, maybe jump into my first floor here, or actually better yet, I'll jump into my 3D view and grab my railings here. I can go to modify, find my split, and now you'll see here that I can go ahead, split my railing, and then I can go ahead and adjust that one by one. Also, what's really nice is that when I get into the actual railing profile this year, you'll see that I can grab on this piece here and actually give it, of course, the slope by the host, flat or sloped, but do an actual height correction. So they gave us either by type or custom. So when I give this a height correction, oh, that's why I typed in an extra inch sign there. Oh, I'm going all over. There we go. Why is it not? My numbers lock's not on. Of course, I need coffee too, apparently. All right, so there we go. And it should, well, it brought that one up for me. Didn't bring that one. But you'll see it's going to go ahead and raise this panel here up for me to match my other railing that's going up. So I can make that adjustment in the actual drawing of the railing itself. Okay. So let's get back into here. All right. So now I'm going to get into detailed steel design. So with this new version of Review, I'm sorry, with Revit 2019, you're going to see that they actually gave us a new toolbar. So that steel kind of tab up there. And it's going to allow us to model with these detailed parts, being as we can actually start creating our own plates. We can specify our bolts, our welds. You can actually modify your steel elements as far as cutting and coping. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a couple of those. So our steel tab, last year we had the structure tab, and then you could find the connection there. This year we have steel. So right up here is our steel tab. And you'll see our connection, the plates. So we have our fabrication elements, plate, bolts, welds, all of our modifiers on how you want to cut, actual parametric cuts with our copes, miters, cut throughs, things like that. But what you'll see here is I've actually created a couple kind of connections here and drawn some bar. Now, what I can do here is actually join these together using this miter feature right here. So I'll go ahead and show this one to you real quick. So I'll grab here, grab my HSS here, grab this one. There we go, enter. And then you'll see it's going to go ahead and miter them together. And you're going to see it's going to put this little box right around it. And you see how it joined them in right there and kind of connected them together. So this is a really kind of interesting feature, because what we can do is modify the parameters of this and then specify whether we want a gap. If we want to create a weld, we can specify our weld thickness, everything like that, okay? Or just jump right into weld and then actually pick your weld point, okay? So we can do that as well. Now, actually, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to do this. So if I want to draw a plate, one of the first things you're going to need to do is actually set your work plane. And in doing this, it's kind of a pain in the butt. I found out that being in a 3D view is actually one of the easiest ways to do this. And especially if you're trying to get it right on the face of one of your beams or right on the web of your beam, okay? So in this sense, I would need to find my beam here. Let me see, make sure I can grab the right position here for it. Okay. And what I'll do is I can draw my plate, something like that. And there it is, okay? So I can draw my plate right on the face of that beam. But they've also, so let me rotate around here a little bit. Maybe I'll just come up a little bit, there we go. Okay, but also what we can do is actually specify our bolt pattern as well. So I can pick my plate, pick my bolts here, okay? And then it's going to ask me to draw my bolt pattern on the face of that plate. Okay, so what's going to happen is as soon as I draw this around and I hit this green check mark here, not did I just draw another plate? I did. Bolts. Come on. Oh, she's not working today for me. Okay, maybe if I go into a different view. Okay, let me go into my section. Sorry, guys. Well, here, I'll go into this one. I'll just grab this one here. I'm going to break this, and then we can see here. So you'll see that I have all 4 of my bolts here, and it actually cuts a hole. So if I do an EH here, you're going to see that it actually cuts through our plate and through the beam to bolt through on both sides for us. For our bolts as well, you have regular bolts, anchor bolts, holes, and shear studs. Now, if I go back, Control Z, and I come right over here, what's nice about these bolts is the fact that we can choose to be either standard, we can change it to engineering degree bolts here, the ISO over here, or if we want to change our grade, we can change the grade, we can change the diameter of our bolts, the assembly, apply a coating, everything like that. Okay, so it's giving us the ability to really create better coordinated and more accurate steel design models. Now, in touching on that one, so I'll go ahead and go back into the PowerPoint here. We actually have standard and custom kind of connections. So you've seen that the steel connection that I have here, right? So I've essentially made this one here as a connection. What we can do is essentially grab any portion of our model here, maybe beam to beam, or let me get into my first floor here. Actually, let's get into a different one. I got a floor on that one for a different exercise here. So if I get into my 3rd floor, I'm going to change it into fine. So of course, connections were added in 2018. The nice thing about 2019 is that there's no structural connection add-in. You don't have to download it separately. It's automatically downloaded with 19. So that's nice. I mean, that's not too much of a new feature. It is a very, very handy kind of tool. So I'll show you here if I choose to do, let's say, I'm not liking those. I'll grab a clip angle. That'll be fine. Okay. Maybe I'll grab this one here and this one here. I'll hit enter, and you'll see that it's going to go ahead and make my connection right there for me. Okay. So kind of did it right there in seconds for me. If I change back. So you can see it down in there. You also notice that it coped the beam for me automatically. So it adjusted my beam to cut back for the top here. It cut that top web back and then attached those beams for me. Now that's another thing we've noticed this year. Once you connect, or once you make that connection between the beams, it's going to join them together. As far as when we go into course view, you're going to see that you can't, that this beam is attached to this other beam here. I tried adjusting the setbacks and then found out that turns out when you join them together, that setback is no longer adjustable, because essentially it's making them as one. It's connecting those two beams. But so I'll go into this portion for you here. The nice thing about 2019 is, and I'll get right back into this 3D view, is that when I grab onto this connection, maybe I'll grab this one here, you'll see that what we can do is actually we can create custom connections this year. So maybe I'll go ahead and miter this one together, go back into steel, and I'll grab my miter, grab it here. Oh, well, delete that one out of there. Let's go miter, enter. Okay. What I can do is modify this, but you'll see here we can customize. Okay, so customize opens the create custom connection. When I make this a custom connection, it's going to ask me, allow me to go ahead and, or ask me, allow me to enter in my other items. So I can add, let's go ahead and maybe add my plate and my bolts, okay? And then it's not going to allow me to grab that one just yet. I should have grabbed that one to begin with. But what you'll see now is that I can go ahead when I go into connection, and I named that custom connection 2. So there it is right there. There's my custom connection 2. So I can essentially recreate that over and over and over again. And this one as well, I can go ahead, grab these here as one essentially, and then just copy and paste it over. Okay, so that's kind of nice. If I join those all together, I can move that as one. All right, so back into my PowerPoint here. Now, this one here, documentation with steel details. So of course, that means we can start making our engineering drawings, such as doing our dimensions and tags, as well as doing schedules for our bolts and our plates. All right, so I'll get back into Revit here. This one is actually a pretty fantastic little feature there. So you'll see I've already got one populated up here, but this is a new kind of bolt schedule, and it's so easy to make. It really is. So I'll show you guys down here. We just really go up to new schedule, quantities, and you can find under structural connections here, you'll find the anchors, bolts, plates, profiles, shear studs, welds, pretty much everything like that, okay? So we can make our bolt schedules. You can actually fill out your fields. So if I actually go in here, grab my structural connection, there they are, bolts, okay? You'll see they've already got a bunch of pre-populated fields that we can go ahead and schedule our bolts from, okay? We also have a plate schedule, and then you can specify the coating, the mark, thickness, all that kind of stuff for those as well. But go back here, I'm not sure. There we go, okay? What we can do, let me see if I can find some of my connections here. Maybe I put them in one of my elevations. Here we go. So, perfect. You see here, I've made a bracing kind of connection, and I'm able to tag my plates as well as my bolts and the actual structural beams themselves. So we can go ahead, dimension those out, tag it out, and make engineering drawings that we can send out. And this provides those detailed documentation for the actual structural steel design, okay, or fabrication essentially. Okay. So, free-form rebar shape matching. This is a very interesting tool as well. You have shape recognition, shape codes assignments, and you can enable schedules for fabrication, which is very, very nice. Okay. So I'll get back in here, and if I get back in here, top of slab, first floor. So it's something like this here. I've literally just made this one in a couple seconds. This is essentially just a free-form rebar shape that just essentially went the whole way across my floor. So if I find my top of slab second floor here, put it in fine detail, okay, maybe I'll actually go to my ground floor, see if I have, there we go. There's a concrete slab here already. So what I can do is I'm actually going to use the floor as my host surface, okay? And I'm going to try to find my floor here, and you'll see that I can go to rebar, which is going to place that planar, multi-planar, or for this year, free form. So normally, you know, we'd go ahead, specify our rebar set here, whether it's a single layout or you got the maximum spacing, minimum number with spacing, what have you. But here is our free-form rebar for this year. Now, all this is going to ask me to do is essentially pick my host surface. So you'll see I got it there. And then I need to tell it kind of how I want to lay this out. And I'll just do something like, I'll just do 1 foot just to make it easy. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and I'm going to pick here to tell it what I've picked my surface. So what I need to do, oh, no, I'm sorry. I need to pick my start surface. So essentially what I need to do, I got that one, okay. Oh, let's go pick my host. There we go, cool. Start surface, here we go. So I'll pick here, kind of pick here, telling it essentially where I want my rebar to start, and then I'll pick my end, tell it that I'm going to go ahead and have it kind of move down this way. Okay, so maybe I'll change it to go the other way instead. Maybe that'll make it easier. There we go. Start surface, we'll grab this one. End surface, I'll hit it here. We'll go ahead. Oh, you're not working for me still. Okay. Try this one. Never mind, it probably did work. I just didn't change the spacing again. Man, jumping all over the place today, huh? So we're going to hit our start surface. So I'll grab this one again here. And then my end surface. Okay. I picked that wall, didn't I? Man. So you can see this is a little bit, it's a little bit finicky sometimes. It's kind of, got to make sure you're picking the right portion of your floor here. Let me pick my floor, not the edges of my wall. Okay. Gosh, dang. Multiple locations, the rebar cannot be created or updated. All right. Yeah, well, usually that's how you do it. You get it to go through. It'll follow the actual start surface here and kind of make its way across like this. You can choose to do the minimum clearance, like I said, and it'll just run your rebar across your surface for you. Okay, but the one other nice thing about it this year is the fact that we can also, let me find it here, create a rebar schedule. And it will take into account those free-form rebar. So here we have our shape here, our shape matching, of course, and it'll go ahead list out all of our rebar. And then if we want to apply a shape image with this, we can actually place in shape images in our rebar schedule. So essentially it's just from your rebar menu, and you have that little sidebar that'll pop up so we can see all the different rebar types. It'll essentially take that image and embed it within our schedule for us. Okay. All right. I'll move on from that one. Okay. Now, automate. Okay. Under automate, you'll see the precast automation for lattice girder slabs. So what this means is if we have a if we apply a lattice slab or just a slab, I'll find my second floor here, and I'll go architecture, floor, we'll grab structural. Yeah, we'll do that one, that's fine. And I'll just grab one and drag it out here, and this will be easy to go ahead and show you guys here. Okay. You'll see that we actually have a precast kind of tool or tab right up here, right? So we have this precast tab, and what we can do here is actually change this slab. So I'm going to go ahead and reinforce this slab, okay? And I'm going to say finish. I got to split it. All right. There we go. And we're going to make this a solid slab. So you see here, I can make this a solid, hollow core, or a girder slab. So if I choose to make this a girder slab, you're going to see that it's going to go ahead and split this automatically for me, right? And I mean, it keeps going from here. There's so much we can do from here. You see, we can export our shop drawings. Now, I'll go ahead and go into reinforcement. I'll choose all of these and finish. And you'll see here, I can do the reinforcement for the type girder slab 1, girder slab 2, and you'll see here under edit, we can change it to say, okay, do I want to use a steel bar? Do I want to use mesh or a truss? Okay, do I want to position it from the top or the bottom? And do I want to apply a cover offset as far as how far it sits down? We can apply our rebar type. So if you want to specify that inside and outside, okay? So I'll just go ahead and I'll just do the reinforcement type girder slab 1, say okay. And take a second here, a little donut of death going. And voila, look at that. All nice and pretty for us, okay? And what's also great, again, we can take this straight into our shop drawings, okay? And of course, it does have that CAM export for Unitech and PXML, okay? Now that's gonna enhance and automate our fabrication process is really what that does. I really like that feature quite a bit. All right. Actually, before I go further, let me show you guys this one as well. So I had split, let me get into my top of footing here. You'll see here that I've already kind of split, and that's just using the precast tab as well again, but I've already split my concrete walls here. And what I did was I created the shop drawings for them already. Now you'll usually find those, let me get out of this one, under assemblies here, and you'll see I have my girder slab, my solid wall 3, solid wall 4, right? So I can find those. Here's solid wall 3, and maybe I want to see my sheet. So check that out. What this does, so this shop drawing tool here, or button here, this is actually going to take that wall and it's going to take all the different types of views and place them onto a sheet for you automatically. It's going to give us a rebar list, a part list, and a material takeoff for your precast parts. So if I check out solid wall 4 here and go to that sheet, again, it's dimensioned all of our portions here to all of our bolts, all of our different parts. It's going to give us that part list, material takeoff again, and everything, and places it right on a sheet for us, ready to export out. So I thought that was a very fantastic kind of time-saving feature there. Okay, API for precast automation. So this enables your third parties to plug into automation mechanisms for your precast, which is going to be your modeling, the shop drawings, and numbering, okay? So I won't go too far into this one. It's just essentially that it's going to enable those third parties to plug in for our automation of those precast, okay? All right, now connect. In Connect, we have improvements for IFC support. So really, Rhino elements now can be copied and mirrored. So when we bring those over, you know, they look like pretty much just a block and you can't do too much with them. Now we can actually copy and mirror them over. So this is going to give us that enhanced interoperability when working with IFC. Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Do you, anyone have any questions for us? All right. Any closing remarks or anything? No? All right. Well, thank you for hanging out with us, guys. Thank you for spending time. And I hope you guys enjoyed the webinar, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. If you guys have any questions, feel free to post them up in the chat. Is this available to see again? I believe this is going to be on our website.
Yes, we are recording it. It will be posted at a later date once it's done rendering and we've got everything up there. It may be up in its entirety. Generally, sometimes we'll cut it into chunks so you can actually check the section you were interested in, kind of thing as well. So, but that should be up either by end of day today or sometime tomorrow or next week. I gotta check with marketing.
Okay. Any other questions for us? Okay. Kant, did you have a question for us, sir?
Yeah, there'll be no audio, so it'd be through the chat window that we ask the questions, and we'll be able to see it there.
Any improvements for sheets management? That one, not that I know of, no, sir. Like creating multiple sheets at a time. Well, that one I would say no. You can create your single sheets now. There are some add-ins like I can say the PPI Revit briefcase that do allow you to create multiple sheets at one time. We have that, what is it, the gosh, the BIM tool on PPI Revit Briefcase.
BIM
BIM query allows you to go ahead and essentially just create new sheets following the same template that you have. But as far as Autodesk, we haven't found anything like that yet. Okay, is there a way to keep or hide active in elevations on sheets even after the file model has been closed?
Hide active in elevations on sheets.
So, well, it depends on if you're using the like EH or VH, I think, and the temporary hide. If you on elevations on sheets, is that like the EH, VH, and then you're actually using the temporary, and then apply the hide or isolate?
I mean, if you use if you toggle off the category.
Oh yeah, she's been using temporary. Yeah, so one of the ways is if you click the sunglasses, if you do use the temporary, you'll see down towards the bottom that it says apply, hide, or isolate. So you can do it that way. It will keep the hide there, or using that EH for element hide or VH for category hide will also keep them hidden. Now you can hit that little light bulb there next to your sunglasses to find all of your hidden items there.
And I'm afraid we don't really have a mechanism to hand out a continuing ed certificate. Sorry about that.
Okay, anything else?
Well, thank you so much for your joining us today. And we will be posting this, like Paul said, and you can always get a hold of us via the phone numbers you see on the screen, or getting information off of our email that you see there as well. So have a good day. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much.